Hello, I'm here with another video for you today. This time I want to talk a little bit about introductions. Introductions are always one of the things that we hate the most. Students always hate introductions and conclusions. I'll have a video for you about conclusions next week. Since, like I said in the drafts video, I'm not asking for your draft to be totally complete. I'm thinking a lot of people might not have the conclusion yet, so I'll give you some stuff on conclusions next week. But for now, introductions. The first thing that they told us about introductions that everyone always remembers is that you need a hook, right? You need a flashy first sentence to bring the audience in. I really hate this idea. I really hate the idea of a hook. I think that like the types of things they encourage people to do, like to use like a quote or something, like start your essay with like Abraham Lincoln once said, justice is never given for free. Well, whatever. It's like, why do I care about some Abraham Lincoln quote? Like, I just don't. Like, is that going to make me interested in your essay? Is that going to make me, oh, I really need to read this. I quoted Abraham Lincoln. Or like an even worse version of that. And I don't blame you if you've done this, because it's what they told us to do, right? I did this stuff before. It's what they told us. They'll tell you, like start off with Webster's dictionary defines justice as the worst, literally like the worst way. So I would not do those things, even though yeah, I don't blame you for doing them in the past. They told you to do that. Um, and also just kind of the whole idea of like you have to engage the audience in that one sentence and like convince them to read the rest of your essay. I just think it's kind of absurd. Like if you're reading my essay and you're gonna decide after the first sentence whether or not you want to read the rest of it, then like you can fuck right off, right? Like you're not my reader anyway. Like I don't really, well then don't read it then. If you're gonna look at one sentence and judge me on that, whether or not you're gonna read it, like I don't need you. Like what a shitty reader that would be. So I don't think we need to think about it that way. You do want to use the beginning of the essay to you do want to get the reader interested, but I don't think it all has to be in that one sentence, and I don't think the idea of using a quote or a dictionary definition or whatever else or a question. Questions can work sometimes. Okay, here's the thing about using a question as the first sentence of an essay. It can work, but it's got to be a real question. It can't be a question that the audience can either answer yes or no. Maybe the worst example of this, I used to work at like a tutoring place where I would work with like younger kids. So I was working with a little girl who's maybe in like third grade, and she had to write an essay about your favorite color, an essay on your favorite color, and she starts the essay off, "What's your favorite color?" And it's funny, and the little girl's just doing what she was told, right? So I don't blame her at all. But like, is that really an interesting way to start a paper? What's your favorite color? Blue. Or maybe it was like, do you have a favorite color? Like even worse, do you have a favorite color? Yeah. Or what does that do for us? Why does that make the audience more interested? So a question can work, but as long as something that actually makes the audience think, right? That a question maybe they haven't asked themselves before, there's not a simple yes or no answer to it. Other ways to start an essay, I always say that you want to start off more general and then get specific. So you might start off with something just like generally about your topic and then get into your specific thesis. In our essay, so for this narrative essay, it's a little bit different, because it's a narrative, it's not just a straight up argumentative essay. So there's two main ways you can do the introduction for this narrative essay. One is you could kind of do what I'm saying about the topic. Maybe you could talk a little bit just about language in itself, and then kind of get down to your specific thesis about why it's more important than people think and stuff like that. That's kind of the general way I would do it for most essays. Like, if you were writing an essay about like the environment or something, you might want to give like just some information about the environment and then get into, here's what we need to do or something like that. So you want to start general and then get more specific. Another way to start off an essay is to kind of set up like a misconception that people have. Like, many people think this, but actually this, and then kind of like get into it. That one I think works because from the beginning you're telling the reader like I'm going to tell you something that most people don't know or that people don't think about or that a lot of people are wrong about, maybe you're wrong about, and that would kind of give them a reason to want to read on. But really, I wouldn't overthink the hook. I don't think there needs to be all this pressure on it, right? Because that's what it does when they tell you that it needs to convince the reader to read your essay. It puts all this pressure on it. It makes it like basically impossible to write. So just focus with your introduction on letting us know what your argument is. That's the number one thing. So you want to have your thesis in there. Again, not necessarily a thesis statement, but you want to make sure that your audience knows what the argument is by the end of that paragraph. So that's for, like most essays, regular essays. For a narrative essay, there's another option. One other thing you can do in the narrative essay is just kind of start right in the middle of the story. This is effective because it gets the audience interested. It can be engaging. I've read essays, that start with like the person waking up or whatever, their alarm clock goes off, and you can kind of taste it from there. Or like some other moment, some piece of dialogue or something like that. Those can be cool ways to start. And then, maybe you get into the story and then you kind of like get into the message a little bit like throughout. So there's different ways to do it for this narrative essay, but for other essays, like for other classes and stuff, generally, like I said, you want to start out with a general thing and then get to your specific thesis, with that really being the most important thing to do. One other really important thing about introductions, don't feel like you have to write them first. It doesn't have to be the first thing that you actually write. In fact, I think a lot of times it's better if you write it last, even. Um, we're kind of thought, and this is because we had to write timed essays, right? A timed essay forces you to write the whole thing in order, to start at the beginning, go all the way to the end, because you're writing like with a pencil too, on like sheets of paper. Um, so that forced us to have to write the introduction first. But I think there's good reasons not to. A lot of the times, I think that we don't know what we're really writing about until we start doing it. So you might not really know what your thesis is or like, fully understand what your thesis is until you start writing one of your paragraphs, maybe until you've written two paragraphs, or maybe until you've written almost the whole essay. And if we think about it, if the introduction is supposed to be a preview to the rest of the essay, you need to know what's going to be in the rest of the essay if you're going to preview it for us. So I think that's another reason that you might want to write the introduction last. And really for all of writing an essay, for the whole thing, never feel like you have to write it all in a certain order. Start wherever you want. If you know there's a part of your essay that's going to be in there, like if you know a certain scene from the story that you're going to include, maybe just start with that. Just get it down on paper, even if it's going to be like in the middle somewhere, and then you can, build it out or whatever. So don't feel like you have to start with the introduction. Maybe even save it until a little bit later in the process. So yeah, I know this probably doesn't make them like a lot easier, these introductions, but I think it at least helps us move past like the really rigid rules that we were given in high school. Like, introduction has to have this, then this, and then your thesis with the three things, right? So really a lot of this class is kind of trying to break out of that mold and do things that are a little more experimental or freewheeling, because that's where engaging writing comes from. That's where genuinely good and interesting essays come into play. So yeah, same thing with the introductions. We're going to break the rules a little bit, break out of that mold. Gives us more freedom, but also, it doesn't give us like as many like concrete answers. So I don't know if this makes introductions a lot easier, but maybe at least gives you a better way of thinking about them. And again, I would just really emphasize starting off with the more general topic, getting to your specific thesis. Audience needs to know what your argument is by the end of it. And I guess that's what I'll say for now with introductions.